Okay, so this is the audio for the Lighthouse, which is one of the quick check for you today. So I'm going to go ahead and read the story with you and then go through the questions. Again, same rodeo. If you need to, pause it to answer the questions. Okay, so you should be on the Lighthouse. All right. Simon was fascinated with the lighthouse to the south of the island. It was just 2 miles from his front door. The lighthouse stood proudly above the sea and cast its light for miles. It had stood in that spot for over 200 years. Wind and rain had battered it, but the lighthouse stood strong and sturdy. During the day, you could see the aging of the old stone bricks. Simon often stared at the lighthouse and wondered about its history. He had even heard rumors that it was haunted by a stonemason that had helped build it. He had been told that stonemason's initials were carved into some of the stones. Simon had never been close enough to see it for himself. At night, it was an eerie presence. The white stones shone in the moonlight like a ghost hovering over the sea. Simon knew the lighthouse was meant to protect sailors, but sometimes he felt like it was watching him. Simon and his friends were scared to even go near it. One night, Rick was staying at Simon's house. Just like Simon, he couldn't help staring at the lighthouse. "I think we should head over there," said Rick, who was Simon's best friend. He was always more adventurous than his sensible friend. Simon thought carefully before responding. "But aren't you scared?" he asked. "Not at all. Are you?" Rick replied. Simon did not want to look scared in front of his best friend. "No," he replied nervously. That is settled then," said Rick. "We will head out this evening." Food and supplies and packed them into Rick's backpack. Then they headed out towards the lighthouse. Both boys were very quiet as they walked through the fields on the island. "You're not saying much," said Simon. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," said Rick. "I was just thinking." When they reached the shore, the sun was starting to set above the sea. The boys slowly climbed the small rock face as the sun went down. They both stopped as they stood in front of the lighthouse door. In you go, then, Simon," said Rick, gesturing towards the wooden door. "You go first," said Simon. "It was your idea." Rick paused and didn't say a single word. Then Rick edged towards the door. He stopped and looked back at Simon, who gave a small nod of encouragement. He arrived at the step and reached out for the door handle. Simon had stayed back in the shadows. As Rick twisted the handle, he suddenly heard a loud growling from inside. "Run!" shouted Rick at the top of his voice. He raced away with Simon following close behind him. They ran back to the main road and headed back towards Simon's house. Rick looked very sheepish as they made their way home. "Didn't you want to see inside?" asked Simon. Rick shrugged and looked down at the ground. "I guess it was scarier than I thought," he whispered. "Oh, I don't know," said Simon. "It wasn't that bad." And here are the questions. Number 1 says, read this sentence from the passage. "At night, it was an eerie presence." Circle all the words that have about the same meaning as eerie. So some of these questions are a little different. So you're going to circle all the words that have the same meaning. So creepy, amusing, ghostly, useful, gigantic, scary, calming, welcoming. Circle all the words that have the same meaning as eerie. 2, select the three details given about the lighthouse that best explains why Simon found it eerie. Check mark 3 boxes to show your choices. I don't know why it says tick, but just circle or check mark your answers. Simon is fascinated by it. It is 2 miles from Simon's house. It stands proudly above the sea. It casts its light for miles. It is 200 years old. It is made of white stones that seem to shine at night. There are rumors that it's haunted. Simon has never been near it. Its job is to protect sailors, and Simon feels like it is watching him. Select 3 details that best explain why Simon finds it eerie. Number 3, read this sentence from the passage. Then Rick edged towards the door. The word edged shows that Rick moved swiftly, slowly, suddenly, or smoothly. Number 4, based on your answer to question 3, what does the way Rick moves show about how he feels? Use details from the passage in your answer. Guess what? Number 4, race strategy. RACE. Race strategy number 4. If you don't do the race strategy, then you probably didn't watch this video. Race. If which statement is which statement is most likely true about Rick? A, he's not scared of anything. B, he's not as fearless as he says he is. C, he enjoys seeing how scared Simon is. Or D, he only pretends to be frightened. Number 6, which word in the sentence below shows that author is using personification? The lighthouse stood proudly above the sea and cast its light miles. Which word in the sentence below shows the author is using personification? The lighthouse stood proudly above the sea and cast its light miles. Proudly, above, light, miles. Number 7, why does Rick tell Simon to run? A, he sees a creature inside the lighthouse. B, he hears a noise from inside the lighthouse. C, he thinks they're going to get in trouble for being inside the lighthouse. Or D, he realizes that the owner of the lighthouse is home. Number 8, at the start of the passage, Rick says that he's not scared of going to the lighthouse. Describe 2 details that suggest that Rick is more scared than he admits. So you're writing down 2 details that suggest that Rick is more scared than he actually is admitting. Number 9, what is the point of view of the passage? First person, second person, third person limited, or third person omniscient. Number 10, according to the passage, how is Simon different from Rick? A, he is more sensible. B, he's more adventurous. C, he's more intelligent. Or D, he's more determined. Once you're finished, you can go on to the next thing in your list and make sure you turn in your packet to me by the end of the day. Bye. That goes for Mrs. Motes' class, not my homeroom. We're different. But when you're finished, put it in the blue basket homeroom.